everyone. This is Leia J. Culigado, your reporter for today. And now we are going to tackle the general guidelines in writing a true or false items, short answer test items, essay test, and problem solving items. The general guidelines in writing true or false items. What is a true or false item? A true or false item asks a student to judge a statement or a proposition as either true or false. Other varieties of true or false items require judgments of yes, no, or correct, incorrect. True false questions are best used when a student's judgment about a fact, concept, example, principle, and other content based item is important for the learning goal. Guidelines for true and false test. Write each item to tap into the content and kind of thinking in important learning statement outcomes. Make sure the alignment between item and learning outcome is strong. For example, for the learning outcome, students will be able to use commas correctly in compound sentences. A set of items might be correctly and incorrectly punctuated compound sentences for the students to judge correct or incorrect. Focus on one important idea or on one relationship between ideas per item. Focus on only one important idea or on one relationship between ideas per item. When an item has only one important idea, the teacher can identify exactly what the student does not know or understand. We need to focus on only one idea so a teacher can easily determine what the student want to know. Also, focus is important so that your mind will process easily. It also enables you to ignore meaningless and irrelevant thoughts. The primary reason for this is that true or false questions are limited. They do not call for a short answer response, nor there are multiple answers to choose from. The learner is simply being asked to declare whether or not the statement or assertion is based in truth. Make each item definitely true or definitely false. Statements that are vague and ambiguous risk being neither true nor false. Avoid them. Propositions that are debatable are better used in essay questions than in true or false questions, where they result in items that are definitely true or false. Each item must be entirely true or false. There can be absolutely no room for doubt or debate. To create true or false statements that are based in fact, it is a good idea to go through learning materials and highlight the key elements of the online lesson. Use these notes as a guide to develop true or false questions that center on the highlighted concepts, rather than trying to cover all aspects of the online lesson in a lengthy true or false exam. Avoid grammatical or formatting clues in the items. Avoid any kind of information that might allow students to answer items without demonstrating the knowledge or skill the item is intended to measure. Make true and false items about the same length. Avoid patterns that answers like PPFF or TFTF and avoid grammar or other verbal clues. Make sure that items do not contain an explanation or qualification. For example, in the statement, conflict is sometimes an important aspect in a play. The qualifier sometimes allows a student to answer true without really knowing whether conflict is one of the important elements of plays or not. So the best practices for developing true or false questions are: first is concentrate on one key idea or concept. Second, statements must have a clear verifiable answer. Third is link it to the learning objective. Fourth is include a good mix of true or false questions. The general guidelines in writing short answer test items. What is a short item test? The short answer is a constructed response item type in which the examinee types a short response. Short answer items require a word, short phrase, or a number response. Short answer items are useful in educational testing because they can use to assess lower order thinking skills such as recall and comprehension of information. However, they can also be used to assess higher level abilities. For example, students can be asked to make interpretations of data, solve numerical problems in science and mathematics, or balance mathematical and chemical equations. Guidelines of creating a short answer test. A direct question is preferable to an incomplete statement. The completion format always implies a question. The student must mentally convert the statement into a question. Therefore, be straightforward and ask the student a direct question in the first place. So, you should be straightforward so your students could understand the question easily. The required response should be concise. Short answer items should require a single correct answer. This can be a brief phrase, a word, or a number. Items with short and concise answers tend to be more specific and clear. Okay, so have you noticed in the short answer test, the instruction says that the answer should be brief. Place the blank near the end of the sentence. If you do, use the completion variety. Place the blank near the end of the sentence. If you place the blank at the beginning or in the middle of the sentence, the student may have forgotten what is taught by the time the entire sentence has been read. Also, when blanks are at the beginning, students have to rearrange it into a question before responding to it. Either way, students will have to read the sentence at least twice before they can answer it. Issues to consider a frequent item test. A frequent item writing challenge for a short item is that it can be difficult to write stems that are clear yet avoid queuing. If the stem is not sufficiently focused, then test takers may find the item confusing. But if the item is overly focused, then the item may be too easy or at too low of a cognitive level. Because of this, a typical weakness of short answer items is that they are often written at the knowledge level. The general guidelines in writing essay test. Essay tests are useful for teachers when they want students to select, organize, analyze, synthesize, and or evaluate information. In other words, they rely on the upper levels of Bloom's taxonomy. There are two types of essay questions, restricted and extended response. Essays, classified as non-objective tests, allow for the assessment of higher order thinking skills. Such tests requires students to organize their thoughts on a subject matter in coherent sentences in order to inform an audience. In essay tests, students are required to write one or more paragraphs on a specific topic. Guidelines in constructing essay tests. Begin with the lesson objectives in mind. Make sure to know what you wish the student to know by answering the essay question. You will plan or think about the learning outcomes and remember your objectives must be aligned to your essay test or the other test. Decide if your goal requires a restricted or extended response. In general, if you wish to see the student can synthesize and organize the information that they learned, then restricted response is the way to go. However, if you wish them to judge or evaluate something using the information taught during class, then you will want to use the extended response. So you will choose whether extensive or restricted. So restricted requires a short phrases or answers, while extended there is no restriction to your answer. We will discuss the two types of response later. If you are including more than one essay, be cognizant of time constraints. You do not want to punish students because they ran out of time on the test. Write the question in a novel or interesting manner to help motivate the student. So when you write an essay question, you should give your students an ample of time so they can answer it better. There's no need to rush things because their mind will not process easily. But when you set time, it should be at the middle, not too fast, not too slow. State the number of points that the essay is worth. You can also provide them with a time guideline to help as they work through the exam. If your essay item is part of the large objective test, make sure that it is last item on the exam. Restricted response. These essay questions limit what the student will discuss in the essay based on the wording of this question. Extended response. This allows students to select what they wish to include in order to answer the question.
The general guidelines in writing problem-solving items.
This kind of test item is classified as a subjective type of item due to the procedures used to score item responses.
So, this kind of test items, the students will look in details of problems to solve or reach a solution, such as math problems. So there are specific questions or problems that the student will going to answer. That is why it is a subjective type. This item will determine how well students can solve problems, problem-solving items. Guidelines for writing problem-solving test. First is clearly identify and explain the problem. In writing a problem-solving test item, you should clearly identify the problem and explain it clearly so the learners could easily understand what is being asked. Second, guidelines. Provide directions which clearly inform the student of the type of response. Provide instructions clearly which states the types of response you want your students will do. It can be constructive tests such as essay test or a graph for math problems. Third, state in the directions whether or not the students must show his or her action or work procedures for. Fourth, guidelines. So you will clearly also separate from parts and indicate whether the students will show their solutions. Decide in advance how incorrect answers in earlier steps of a scientific method for the procedures of experiments or in constructing a problem test item, you should also use figures or it can be illustrations as well as real with situations which create realistic problems and solutions. Seventh, work through each problem conditions and situations to double check create a realistic problem. You will focus on each problem as in construction problem validity and reality should also use figures or it can be illustrations are better than others as well as real. So you can also ask questions to differentiate or express which create one realistic problems is better, other solution is more better than the other.